She left on a trip and disappeared for years. Now she has returned with a baby and thinks I will take her back. The paternity test changed everything. I need to get this off my chest because I still can't believe this is actually happening. I'm 32. I manage a restaurant in Portland, and I thought I had my life figured out until 3 days ago when my ex-wife showed up at my apartment with a toddler. Let me back up because this story is absolutely insane. 6 years ago, I met Sienna at a friend's wedding in Seattle. She was a bridesmaid. I was a groomsman, and we hit it off immediately. She was spontaneous and adventurous and everything I wasn't, which I loved at the time. We dated for 8 months and then got married way too fast, but I was 26 and stupidly in love. The first year was great, or at least I thought it was. She worked as a yoga instructor and talked constantly about wellness and finding her true purpose. I didn't think much of it because everyone in Portland talks like that. But then she started getting restless. She'd come home from the studio and complain that she felt stuck, that she needed to experience more of the world, that she was wasting her youth. I suggested we take a vacation to Hawaii or maybe Costa Rica. She said that wasn't enough. About 2 years into our marriage, she brought up the idea of a sabbatical. She wanted to go to Southeast Asia for several months to study meditation and yoga at some retreat in Bali. I told her that sounded great, but maybe we could go together, take a few weeks off. She said no, she needed to do this alone, that I wouldn't understand. That hurt, but I tried to be supportive. I asked how long she'd be gone, and she said probably 3 months, maybe 4 at most. I wasn't thrilled, but I figured if this would make her happy and help her figure things out, I could deal with it. We talked about it for weeks, and I kept expressing my concerns. I told her that leaving for that long would put a strain on our marriage. She promised me it wouldn't, that this would actually make us stronger because she'd come back as her best self. I wanted to believe her. She left in February, about 2 years ago. The first month she texted me every few days, sent me photos of temples and beaches. The second month the messages slowed down. She said the retreat had a policy about phone usage and she was really getting into the practice. I was lonely, but I told myself this was temporary. By month 3, I was texting her more than she was texting me. Her responses got shorter and less frequent. I'm good, really busy with training. Miss you too, talk soon. That kind of thing. Month 4 hit, and I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks straight. I was starting to panic. I called her mom who lived in Phoenix, and she said she hadn't heard from Sienna either, but that was normal for her. She'd done this kind of thing before apparently. That was news to me. Then in late June, almost 5 months after she left, I got an email. Not a text, not a call, an email. It was from a lawyer's office in California. Divorce papers. I sat at my desk in the restaurant office staring at my laptop screen for probably 20 minutes. There was a brief note from Sienna attached. I'm sorry to do this, but I've realized I'm not ready to be married. I need to continue my journey. Please sign the papers. I'll handle everything else. The exclamation point killed me. Like this was some casual breakup and not the end of our marriage. I tried calling her immediately, but her phone was disconnected. I tried Facebook and Instagram, but she'd blocked me on everything. I was destroyed. I called out of work for a week and barely left my apartment. My friends came over and tried to help, but what could they say? My wife had literally abandoned me on another continent and sent divorce papers through a lawyer. I signed them after about a month because what else was I going to do? Fight for someone who clearly didn't want to be married to me? The divorce was finalized by September, about 7 months after she left. She never asked for anything, didn't want alimony, didn't want to split our tiny savings. She just wanted out. I spent the next year in therapy trying to process what happened. My therapist said Sienna probably had some commitment issues and possibly some mental health stuff she never addressed. That made sense, but it didn't make it hurt less. Eventually, I started dating again. Nothing serious for a while, just trying to remember how to be a person. Then about 8 months ago, I met Marlo at a coffee shop downtown. She's a graphic designer, funny, stable, emotionally available. We took things slow, and it's been really good. I was finally feeling like myself again. I even got promoted to general manager at the restaurant. Life was looking up. Then 3 days ago, in early October, I got home from a closing shift around 11 at night, and there was someone sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. I didn't recognize her at first because her hair was different and she looked tired and older. But then she stood up and I saw her face. Sienna. And she was holding a toddler on her hip. My brain completely short-circuited. I just stood there on the sidewalk with my work bag hanging off my shoulder. She walked up to me and said, "Hi, Cade," like we'd just seen each other last week. The kid was awake, maybe 18 months old, wearing little pajamas with dinosaurs on them. I finally managed to say, "What are you doing here?" She shifted the kid to her other hip and said, I know this is a surprise, but we need to talk. Can we go inside? I looked at her and at the toddler, and I felt like I was in a nightmare. The kid had dark curly hair and was staring at me with these big brown eyes. I said, "Whose kid is that?" She took a deep breath and said, "Ours. This is our daughter. Her name is Luna." And that's when my entire world flipped upside down again. I stood there trying to process what she just said. Our daughter. I looked at the kid again, and my mind was racing through the timeline. Sienna left 2 years ago in February. If this kid was 18 months old, that meant she was born around May last year, which meant Sienna would have gotten pregnant right before she left, or maybe in the first few weeks of her trip. My hands started shaking. I unlocked the building door, and we went upstairs to my apartment without saying anything else. Luna was getting fussy, and Sienna was bouncing her and making those shushing sounds. Once we got inside, I turned on the lights and just stood in the middle of my living room. Sienna sat down on my couch like she'd been there 100 times before, even though she'd never seen this apartment. I moved here 6 months after the divorce. I finally found my voice and asked where she'd been for 2 years. She said she stayed in Bali for 8 months and then traveled around Thailand and Vietnam. She said she found herself and grew so much as a person. I asked when she found out she was pregnant. She got quiet and looked down at Luna, who was pulling at her hair. She said she realized she was pregnant in April, about 2 months after she left. She said she was scared and confused and didn't know what to do. I asked why she didn't tell me. She said she wasn't sure the baby was mine. That hit me like a truck. I asked what she meant by that. She said she'd met someone at the retreat in Bali, another American guy named Derek. She said it only happened a few times, and it was a mistake, and she ended things with him, but by then she'd already missed her period. I sat down in the chair across from her because my legs felt like they were going to give out. I asked if she was seriously telling me she cheated on me while she was on her spiritual journey to find herself. She started crying and said it wasn't like that our marriage was already broken, that she was lost, and Derek understood her in ways I never did. I told her that was bullshit, and she knew it. She wiped her eyes and said she took a paternity test when Luna was born. She said Luna was mine, not Derek's. I asked why I should believe anything she said at this point. She said she had the test results and could show me. I told her to show me right now. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through photos. She found a document and handed me the phone. It was a paternity test from some lab in Thailand. I looked at it, and it had Derek's name, and it said he was excluded as the father with 0% probability. But that didn't prove Luna was mine. It just proved she wasn't Derek's. I handed her phone back and told her I wanted my own paternity test done here in the US with a proper lab. She said fine, that she expected that. I asked why she waited 18 months to tell me I had a daughter. She said after Luna was born, she was overwhelmed and scared. She said she was living in Chiang Mai with some other yoga teachers and barely making enough money. She said she thought about reaching out, but she was ashamed of how she'd left things. She said she finally came back to the US 3 months ago and stayed with her sister in Sacramento. I asked why she was here now. She said her sister kicked her out 2 weeks ago because her husband didn't want them there anymore. She said she had nowhere else to go and Luna deserved to know her father. I looked at this kid who was now falling asleep on Sienna's shoulder. She had my ex-wife's nose, but I couldn't see myself in her at all. I told Sienna she couldn't stay here. She started crying again and said she wasn't asking to move in. She just needed help. She said she had about $300 left and no job and no place to live. I told her that wasn't my problem. That sounded harsh even as I said it, but I was so angry. She said, "Please, Cade, I know I messed up, but Luna is innocent in all this. She's your daughter." I told her we'd do the paternity test, and then we'd figure things out. She asked where she was supposed to sleep tonight. I told her I'd pay for a motel room for one night, and tomorrow we'd get the test done. She looked relieved and thanked me. I booked her a room at a Motel 6 about 10 minutes away on my phone and drove them there. Sienna held Luna in her lap in the back seat, and the kid fell asleep against her chest. When I dropped them off, Sienna grabbed my hand and said she never stopped loving me. I pulled my hand away and left. I got back to my apartment around 1 in the morning and couldn't sleep. I kept running the timeline through my head. If Sienna got pregnant right before she left, or in those first few weeks, the timing could work. But she'd also admitted to sleeping with someone else. The next morning, I called out of work and took Sienna and Luna to a lab that did expedited paternity testing. It cost $400. They swabbed my cheek and Luna's cheek and said results would be emailed by the next afternoon if I paid for express processing. Sienna asked if we could get lunch. I said no. She asked if I wanted to spend time with Luna. I told her I wasn't ready for that. I dropped them back at the motel and went home. At 4:30, my phone rang. It was Marlo. I'd completely forgotten that we had plans to have dinner at her place that night. She asked if I was still coming, and I realized I hadn't told her any of this. I said I needed to talk to her about something. She could tell from my voice something was wrong. I drove to her apartment and told her everything. She sat on her couch, not saying anything for a long time. Then she asked if I thought the kid was really mine. I said I didn't know. She asked what I was going to do if she was. I said I had no idea. She said this was a lot to process. I agreed. She said she needed some time to think about what this meant for us. That scared me, but I understood. The next day around 2 in the afternoon, I got an email from the lab. I opened it on my phone at the restaurant during a slow period. The results said I was excluded as the father. 0% probability. Luna wasn't mine. I felt this weird mix of relief and anger. Relief that I wasn't tied to Sienna forever, but anger that she'd put me through this whole thing. I called Sienna immediately. She answered on the first ring. I said the test came back. I'm not the father. There was silence on the other end. Then she started crying and said that couldn't be right, that the test in Thailand said Derek wasn't the father either. I told her she needed to figure out who Luna's actual father was because it wasn't me. She said, "Kate, please, there was no one else. It has to be you or Derek." I told her clearly there was someone else she forgot about or wasn't being honest about. She kept crying and saying this didn't make sense. I said I'd pay for one more night at the motel, but after that she was on her own. She begged me not to abandon them. I said she abandoned me 2 years ago and hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. I paid for one more night at the motel like I promised and figured Sienna would reach out to her mom or friends or figure something out. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls from her and about 20 text messages. Most of them were her begging me to reconsider and saying she had nowhere to go. A few of them were angry, calling me heartless and saying I was abandoning my responsibility. I didn't respond to any of them. I went to work and tried to focus on the lunch shift, but my head wasn't in it. Around 2 in the afternoon, my assistant manager came to the office and told me someone in the dining room was asking for me. I walked out and saw Sienna sitting at a table near the window with Luna in a high chair. My stomach dropped. She waved at me like this was totally normal. I walked over and kept my voice low, asking what she was doing here. She acted like showing up at my workplace was no big deal since I wasn't answering my phone. I told her she couldn't just ambush me at work. A few customers were staring, and Luna was making a mess with crackers. I told Sienna to wait outside and took a quick break. In the parking lot, she immediately started talking about the paternity test. She insisted something must have gone wrong. Maybe the lab made a mistake or mixed up samples. I told her that wasn't how it worked, and she needed to accept reality. She got emotional and explained that her mom wouldn't return her calls, her sister wouldn't take her back, and emergency housing would take weeks. She tried calling shelters, but they were all full. Then came the guilt trip about Luna potentially being homeless. That got to me, but I stayed firm. I told her there were resources for single mothers, and I'd help her find them, but nothing more. Why are you being so cruel? That's when I lost it. I reminded her that she didn't get to play victim here. She was the one who left, who cheated, who sent divorce papers through a lawyer without even calling. She made her choices and now had to live with them. She started crying, and Luna picked up on it and started crying too. Sienna insisted she'd changed and wasn't that person anymore. I told her people don't change that much. Then she dropped the bomb that she still loved me, and if I gave her a chance we could be a family. I stared at her in disbelief and asked if she seriously thought I'd take her back after everything. She talked about second chances and being willing to work for it. I told her some mistakes were too big to come back from. She switched tactics and brought up Marlo, asking if I loved her. I told her that was none of her business. So you can move on, but I can't come home. I made it clear this was never her home and walked back inside, leaving her in the parking lot with Luna. Back in the office, I was shaking. The rest of the week was a nightmare. She showed up at the restaurant twice more. She waited outside my apartment building one night. Long emails kept coming about how sorry she was and what she'd do to make things right. I stopped reading after the first one. Marlo came over Friday night, and we had a serious talk. She could see this was eating me alive, but she needed to know I was really done with Sienna. I promised her I was. She believed me, but made it clear I needed to handle this once and for all because the constant drama was too much. She was right. The next day, I called Sienna and told her to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. I got there first with my black coffee. She showed up 20 minutes late with Luna looking absolutely exhausted. Dark circles, messy hair, same clothes from 3 days earlier. We sat down and I told her I was going to say this once and didn't want to hear from her again. I explained that what she did was unforgivable, not just the leaving but the way she did it. It showed she never cared about or respected me. Coming back now wasn't love, it was desperation. She tried to interrupt, but I kept going. I'd moved on. I was happy, and she needed to respect that. I'd help her find resources, but that was it. She asked if any part of me still had feelings for her. I looked at her and felt nothing except maybe pity. I told her no. She nodded slowly and tears came, but she didn't make a scene. I pulled out a printed list of emergency housing programs, food banks, and social services in Portland. I also wrote her a check for $500. I slid everything across the table and told her this was the last money she'd get from me. She picked up the check and thanked me quietly. There was a moment where she asked if she could hug me. I said no. She gathered up Luna and left without looking back. I sat there finishing my coffee and feeling like a weight had lifted. When I got home, I blocked her number and email. 2 weeks passed without contact. Then her mom Patricia called one afternoon. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. She told me Sienna had reached out and explained everything. Patricia sent her money for a bus ticket, and Sienna was moving to San Diego to stay with Patricia's niece. Patricia apologized for how things turned out and mentioned she always liked me. I thanked her and said I hoped Sienna figured things out. That was 3 months ago now. Marlo and I are doing great. We moved in together last month and started talking about getting engaged next year. I still think about that whole situation sometimes, but mostly I'm just grateful it's over. I dodged a massive bullet. The lesson I learned is that sometimes people show you exactly who they are, and you just have to believe them the first time. Sienna showed me she was selfish and impulsive and willing to blow up her life on a whim. I'm glad I didn't let her blow up mine again. If anyone out there is dealing with an ex trying to come back after they burned everything down, my advice is simple. Don't let them. Close the door and move forward. You deserve better than someone who only wants you when they have nowhere else to go. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments. Drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories.